Hi everybody, my name's Amelia and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today I am responding to a comment that somebody left on a video a long time ago. I have no idea how long it's been, but I know it's been a while. This is the comment, and essentially this person is asking about my buddy system for my tarot decks. So for today, we're talking about my buddy system. So my tarot decks and my oracle decks have buddies. Kind of. Essentially, there are certain decks that I only use together and they work really well together, and there are certain oracle decks that I only pull out when I'm using their buddy tarot deck. So for today's video, I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more, kind of going into detail about what I mean about my buddy system and why I do it, slash what my buddies are. So yeah. Now I do want to point out that not every tarot deck is going to be featured in this video, nor every oracle deck. There are some oracle decks that I hardly ever pull, and there are some oracle decks that just don't really have a buddy, and there are tarot decks that also just don't have a buddy. So not every deck will be shown here. The decks that I am showing, the reason that I'm showing them is because I typically grab that deck and then I almost always grab its buddy at the same time. So I almost never read the deck by itself, basically. Sometimes I do. I don't know. That's kind of a weird system. Everything is based on my intuition and what I'm feeling, so that makes this a little bit tricky to film. However, I also wanted to point out that when it comes to my buddy system, it's not just tarot and oracle. Sometimes I do tarot and tarot, but of course you'll see that as we get into the video. And for the last portion of the video, I am going to be showing you some of my new decks. So there are a few decks I got over the holiday season, so I haven't featured them on the channel yet, so if you are interested in those, that is somewhere in the video, I believe towards the end. To be honest, I filmed this separately. But the whole point of showing you my new decks and then some other decks that I want to work with again in 2023 is because those decks don't have buddies yet, and I want to kind of create a system, a buddy system for them. I want to find decks that want to work together and that will be compatible together. So that's kind of something that I'm exploring and talking about towards the end of the video. I'll leave timestamps down below just so you guys can jump to the parts you want to see, but otherwise, that's it. So anyway, before we get into the rest of the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up if you like it, because it really helps out me and my channel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and leave comments down below for video ideas. I will probably feature you because I like doing that. So yeah, anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Alright, so before we fully get into this video, I just kind of wanted to point out that I won't be showing every single deck. Some of my decks do not have buddies, and that's just how it is. So there will be some decks missing that you might have seen in my collection video that are not going to be in this one. But starting off, we're going to start strong with the Crow Tarot. So the Crow Tarot is like my soul deck, in all honesty. So this is the deck that I refuse to use it on anyone else, and I only use it for myself. It's a very deep, dark shadow work deck for me, so I tend to be a little stingy with it. But of course it gets a buddy. It actually has two buddies, which I'm going to show you. Again, some decks have no buddies, some decks have one, some decks have two. It sort of depends on the deck's energy to me. So the Crow Tarot has two buddies. One is an oracle deck and one is a tarot deck. So I actually have I don't even know, more than twice the number of tarot decks than I do oracle decks. I'm very, very, very picky with oracle decks. I do plan on buying some more this year and kind of leaning away from tarot for a little while, but again, I'm very picky about it, so keep that in mind as this video continues. But the Crow Tarot's first buddy is the Wild Unknown Archetypes by Kim Kranz. So I'm going to split them in half, the buddy in half, and then show you the cards just like this. So you can kind of see what they look like together. This is something that Don Michel at Boho Tarot does a lot, and I really like seeing it this way on video. This is not how it would be in a spread, but I'll show you that as well. But I really like this way of showcasing the cards, but Don Michel does this on her channel, and I just really like the setup when she shows the buddy system that she uses for her decks, so I'm going to kind of mimic that, but at the end I'm going to show you what it looks like in a spread, because ultimately that is part of the reason why I do this. So as I said before, the Crow Tarot is a very like deep and dark deck for me. This is a shadow work deck for me. And the Wild Unknown Archetypes is very similar. There's a lot of dark tones in here. Of course there's that pop of color, but there's a lot of dark tones, and the guidebook for the archetypes just really, it hits different, you know? It really dives in and kind of just, I don't know, I just love the descriptions in it. They're very intimate and very soulful, and they sometimes bring me to tears. So I really do enjoy that. So I'm just going to show you how they look together. This, because it's a circular deck, you'll see that these are kind of flipped around, so I might move that a little bit. But we have like the Mentor, we have the Seven of Wands, the Storm. That's a pretty cool combination actually. But because the Crow Tarot is such a deep reader for me, I tried to turn the Crow Tarot upright so that way it'll be mostly upright for this, but normally I use reversals, so if there are some reversals in here, that is just how it is. So, and again, these are going to be in all sorts of ways. Oh, look at all that. Look at the yellow, like combining with the yellow here. That's pretty great. I just think the art blends so well, and they're both collage decks, so that helps. They're dark collage decks, so that just kind of makes the imagery feel very fitting, and I just really like the way the two of them look together, and just the way they work together as well. Again, this one has more like black and white. This might have more color, but that's just how the deck is. But again, both are very like deep, soulful decks. They give me very complex readings, which is part of the reason why I use them together. And they also just get along very nicely. This deck likes to rip me to shreds, and so does this one. So they have a similar idea of how a reading should go, and so I feel like that makes it very easy to read them together and to decipher some meaning. The difference between these two is that with the Crow Tarot, I tend to be able just to see the cards and understand the message really intuitively. I see it and I instantly know what it's trying to tell me. Of course, I can read the tarot a lot easier than I can Oracle decks, because Oracle decks are invented by the creator, so it's like a whole different system, whole different ball game, if you will. But this is more intuitive. I see the cards and I get the message. It's like an instant download, you know? But when it comes to the archetypes, you have to kind of work for it. Like, I see, say, like the Empty Room and the Village, and I see this Ace of Pentacles, which is actually a fun little story, it feels like. But with the archetypes, I tend to only pull about 3 cards in a reading, nothing more, otherwise it gets a little too chaotic. And there is a lot of intuitive things I can pull from it, but I have to think about it a little bit more. I have to look at the imagery, I really have to dive into it, and usually I end up heading straight for the guidebook. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out the cards as if I were doing a reading. So we'll just throw some under there. Okay, my table's a bit messy, but this is kind of how it looks in a reading. And I like that it's dark, but also so vividly like colorful. Like there's pops of purple and red and yellow and blue, and this also has those pops of color within the darkness, and I really, really like the way they look together. They fit like just beautifully, they blend beautifully, and in a reading, this is kind of what a reading would look like. Now, I didn't actually pull like anything purposefully, so this is just me just throwing out cards so you can see what's happening, get a general idea. But I really like the coloration. I love the collage vibes between the two of them. I didn't think I was going to be a fan of collage decks, but they are probably some of my favorite decks and like artworks for whatever reason. But again, this one just hits different. It really like punches me in the gut, and I actually love decks like that. Also, the backs of these two decks look really nice together because they're just black and white. It's very simple. So I really like these two as a buddy. This is my main combination when it comes to deck pairings, because most of the time I don't pull oracle for myself. I tend to pull oracles for other people when I give readings, but for myself I tend to limit it. But this is the exception. This is the deck that I almost always pull oracles with, or maybe not always, but I do a lot, and I just love the way they work together. But I don't typically pull oracle with my tarot, if that makes sense. It happens every now and again for me, but most of the time my pairings are meant for other people. So you'll see that as this little video goes on. So let's move on to the next one. Alright, so the next pairing that I often pair my Crow Tarot with is the Darkwood Tarot. So again, I do like to mix my tarot decks every now and again, especially if they play well together, and Darkwood loves to dive into shadow work as well. These two decks tend to come together during October and November, so during spooky season and a little after. These two decks come out and are together more often. When it happens throughout the rest of the year, Crow Tarot typically works with the Wild Unknown archetypes. So I'm going to pull these so you can just see how they are together. There are some reversals. I'm not going to straighten them. That's a lot of work, so I'm just going to leave it as is. As you can see, this has a bit of a brighter feel to it, while this tends to be a little bit darker, has more muted tones. This one's very colorful. But these two decks do really well together in readings, and they play off of one another very, very nicely. So I really like using them. Now I'll also move this around in a second because these two are like the perfect buddy sort of thing. So normally when I choose an oracle deck or a complementary buddy deck, the one in the middle that I'll be showing you is going to be the main deck that I'm doing the reading with, and the one on the outside is the one that is the accompanying deck. It's the complementary deck, if you will. So that's kind of how I'm going about this, but the thing about these two decks is that they can kind of work together in either way. So if I'm going to pull the Darkwood, I might consider, these are like all, I don't even know what's going on here. If I'm going to pull the Darkwood, then I might consider pulling the Crow Tarot as the complementary deck. So I'll go ahead and switch those around so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is what that would look like if the Crow Tarot was going to complement the Darkwood. Now, their art doesn't totally blend together, but I'm not too picky about that. I really like how the two of them work together, how they play together, so that's kind of what matters more to me in this little arrangement. So, yeah. And this is how they might look in a spread. So I have the Crow Tarot and then I have the Darkwood in the middle, kind of sandwiching the two. And again, this could change. I could move things around. So for example, let's just say I had 3 of those. So we could do something like that. Let's just say that was a spread I came up with. And so we have more Darkwood than we do Crow Tarot. But the thing about these two is that they do communicate very, very, very well with each other, and they tend to get the message across quite clearly, as well as dipping into that shadow aspect of the self, which is really important to me and the reason that I use these two decks together. One thing I will say that is something that needs to be taken into consideration for me anyway when I use 2 tarot decks together instead of a tarot and an oracle, is that I don't want them to repeat after each other. So they need to have their own voice. They need to be similar enough that they share a message in a sense. So they need to be similar enough that they can communicate together, but not so similar that they say the same thing. One of the issues I've had giving readings to other people when I try to put 2 tarot decks together is that the 2 tarot decks will just repeat each other. So for example, readings like this have happened to me before, maybe not perfectly, but they have happened. So I made this very like straightforward. It's usually not this perfect, but sometimes when decks agree a little too well, they send out the same cards. And so, for example, this is the Five of Pentacles from Darkwood, Five of Pentacles from the Crow Tarot, Knight of Swords from Darkwood, Knight of Swords from the Crow Tarot, Queen of Cups from the Darkwood, and Queen of Cups from the Crow Tarot. Now, I pulled these intentionally because these two decks don't typically read like this. I have had times where they'll say the same thing, but it's very uncommon. They usually say a similar message but in a different way, or they offer advice a little bit differently, and while still addressing the same problem. And again, they aren't totally drastic in their opinions, so I have decks that if you lay them side by side and ask them the same question, they'll have like completely different answers. So one might give you the Sun and the other will give you the Tower, and you're like, okay, great, that did not help. Or again, I have decks that will say the same thing, so they'll both give me the Sun, for example. These decks, though, do something a bit more compatible, if you will. So if I asked a question, I got the Sun from, say, the Crow Tarot. From Darkwood, I might get something like the Six of Cups. So same sort of vibes there. A little bit, you can look a little bit deeper and see the similarities between those two cards. It's not like night and day, and it's also not the same exact message. But this is a potential problem when you blend two tarot decks together, when you try to read with two tarot decks, is you're going to get the same message. And every now and again, having the same sort of message is okay, but if you got something like this, then they're just repeating after each other, and that's not what I want when I do deck pairings. So that is why when it comes to putting two tarot decks together, I try to do it in a way that blends their art and their overall vibe, but also includes the fact that they are more compatible than they are the same. So yeah. But I really do love these two decks together. Their colors fit. I think the art looks nice together, but also it's more about their vibes and the messages that these two like to get across. Alright, so here is another deck pairing that I personally feel is kind of predictable. I think a lot of my deck pairings can be predictable. Some of them aren't, but most of them I think are kind of predictable. So we have the Green Witch Oracle and the Mystic Faerie Tarot. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. So this one, the Mystic Faerie Tarot, is the deck that is in the spotlight. So we're going to put her in the middle. And the Green Witch Oracle is our complementary deck. So again, there will be reversals in the tarot deck, and there's actually reversals in here, but there's no reversals when reading them. It's just because I shuffled them all up and mixed them up, so. But already we can see all this green here. They just look really nice together, and I think a plant-themed oracle with a nature-y, fairy sort of tarot deck makes sense. So I really like seeing them together. I like using them together, and I use them at the same time of the year. So that's another consideration, is when I use them. So the Green Witch Oracle tends to come out in the spring and early summer, and that is also when the Mystic Faerie Tarot comes out. The Mystic Faerie Tarot comes out to work with me in the springtime because of all of the nature vibes that are just in the deck naturally. I love that there's like fertility here with the Empress. It's pretty. Except I was flipping cards, but we'll just pretend that counted. So the interesting thing about reading with these two, though, is that both decks tend to be a bit more passive. So I have a lot of decks that are very active, who are very blunt and, you know, honest, and this combination is very light. It's very gentle. The Mystic Faerie Tarot, it took me a while to work with it. It's a deck that is very quiet, laid back, and doesn't really want to step on people's toes. And the Green Witch Oracle is very uplifting, in my opinion. Whenever I use it to read, it has some beautiful thing like purification and divination, and it's just a very gentle, reassuring, affirmative deck. And I think that blends really well with the Mystic Faerie Tarot. Alright, and here's how this might look in a reading. Again, I just feel like it's a very sweet, like, gentle sort of combination, And the great thing about the Mystic Faerie is that it kind of tells a story within the suits, like you can kind of see the changes, which is really nice. And I feel like this adds that additional like message. And it's not too heavy, and it's very light, and again, very sweet. So I really like putting these together. I think it makes sense for the two of them. And it's not my favorite pairing, but it's definitely one that works, and I often do this for client readings as well, just because it makes sense, and that's really important to me. And again, neither one steps on each other's toes, which is also very helpful. Alright, this next pairing is going to be very bizarre. So this is my classic RWS tarot deck. Okay. So again, traditional imagery here. My cards are very worn. I've used these and loved these a lot. And that is because it's my very first tarot deck that I've ever had. So here he is. And the deck pairing is the Spirit Animal Oracle. So the funny thing about this is that the main reason that these two are paired together, it's not because of the art, it's not even because of their vibes, because they have different vibes, different things they care about. It's literally because they were both my firsts. So this is my first ever Oracle deck and my first ever tarot deck. And the funny thing is that they do work really well together. Again, totally different. If I will pull this oracle for honestly most things. So this is my most used oracle, aside from maybe the archetypes one during the winter months. This one is my most used during all the other months. This is my most used, sorry, it's upside down. I just am really bad at shuffling. This is my most used oracle deck for clients because it's just so straightforward. I love that it gives the title as well as a little statement, like so turn knowledge into wisdom, or the abundant universe will provide. So kind of interesting that it pairs with the Nine of Swords there. Oh my goodness, can we all be upright please? So I really like how these work. Look, love is all around, spirit has your back. Oh my gosh, like it's so good together. I just really like these two together. They don't even like match aesthetically, but their message is just I don't know, there's something about it that I just really like. And they're my first ever decks. Why are we all over the place? And I think because they've been with me the longest, then they've been used so much, I think that they're really solid readers. They're like workhorses, and that's like a word that people use in the tarot community when your deck is like great for almost anything. And I just feel like I don't know, they work, okay? They work together and they're really good at it. And so these are solid readers. I use both these decks for a lot of readings for other people as well as for myself, and they're just very well loved. So I really like how they work together. So here's how they might look in a reading together. I only pull a few of the oracle, which is kind of typical for me. I pull mostly tarot and then a few oracle, just kind of sprinkle out throughout the reading. I actually love that the lion spirit right there is on top of the emperor, and I love that Coyote, which says trust in divine detours, is on the tower card. That just makes a lot of sense. This is actually a very rough reading, so if this were a reading for somebody, that'd be rough. But anywho, this is how I like to use them together. Again, does their art match? No. Do they look amazing together? Not really. No, they don't look horrible, but they don't look amazing together. But it's the way that they work together, the way that they communicate, the way that this uplifts the messages from this. My RWS deck is one of my harsher decks. It is honestly, I wouldn't say the harshest. Crow Tarot is pretty harsh, but this one is a very harsh deck. It's very like in your face, it's very blunt, it's a rough one. And the Animal Spirit Oracle is just, it's not like a tough deck, it's not soft either, but it is very uplifting, and I think that that is really helpful for the ends of a reading, just for it to be sort of an uplifting, like walk away feeling good sort of message. So I do like using these together a ton, and I really like using this deck for clients. Now, if I wanted to do more of an aesthetic reading with my Spirit Animal Oracle, I would choose the Tarot of the Divine. Now, this kind of makes the Spirit Animal Oracle feel a bit sweeter and a bit softer, and it only enhances its uplifting qualities, I think, because my Tarot of the Divine loves romance readings. It's gentle, it's playful, and just very sweet overall. So when I pair the Spirit Animal Oracle with it, I think it kind of really enhances that, like, you know, you got this kind of energy, if you will. It's really nice. I like to set healthy boundaries with the Emperor there. So I really like, let me move that. I really like using these two together. I think they make sense and it works well in a spread. The art, I feel like, is a bit more connected and just looks a bit better together than the art that was in the traditional RWS. So I think that that helps a little bit. Yeah. I don't really have much to say on that, other than that this is a good combo, and not one I use for myself necessarily, but one I definitely use for client readings. I'll show a quick overview of these side by side, and then we'll move on to the next one. Alright, so as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, not all of my Oracle decks are going to be shown, nor are they used in the buddy system. And I don't know, I gravitate towards tarot, I don't know. So when it comes to this pairing, this is two tarot decks, and they have very similar art, and for the most part they do readings very well together. And I'm going to kind of explain it because it's a little funny with this one, but yeah. So this is the Ethereal Visions Tarot, the first edition. I don't really know how many editions there are, but I do know that the creator came out with a Luna edition. I don't have that one, just have whatever one this one is. I assume the first. And the next deck that I'm pairing it with is going to be, or is, the Arcana Isis Sacra deck by Tina Gong. So this deck, as you can see, is sort of Pippish. There is a lot of sacred geometry in it. There's some symbolism that I don't always understand, but it is Pippish. But the thing is, both decks aesthetically are very pastel and very like muted in tones. They're also both very fancy. This has like the gilding and this has like the gilding on the sides, so they're both like very fancy decks, which I think works well. Move that there. So the way that I read with these two is this is my main tarot deck that does all the reading, and this starts acting like the Oracle. And one thing that happens every now and again with these decks, because their communication style is similar-ish, is that I will pull cards that are just all the same, which oh my gosh, that is a lot of courts. Okay, we have Princess of Swords, Page of Cups, and Prince of Wands. It's like page, knight. Interesting. And then there's more beneath. I can see it. So, but the thing is, if I come up with, that's fine. Let's say they matched. Let's say this was the Page of Swords instead of the Page of Cups. Then this is the Princess of Swords, which is essentially the Page of Swords. I would draw understanding from the imagery, from the two symbols on the side. It doesn't really work as well with court cards now that I'm trying to think about that, but now that my example's failing. Alright, for sake of argument, let's assume that I got the Nine of Pentacles and over here is the Nine of Discs. That's the same card. So, but the difference is I can use what I know about the Nine of Pentacles from the tarot, like my own personal interpretation and more intuitive interpretation, and then pair that with the planet Venus and the sign of Virgo here, as well as the word gain. I think that these key like the keywords, the planetary associations, and the astrological associations can really help to draw in more meaning. And that's the great thing about the Arcana Isis Sacra, is that it has these extra keywords and astrological associations. So I really do like using this as an oracle, and again, if the two of them happen to match, which does happen with these decks in particular, there is more to draw from. So I'm not too worried if the decks start mimicking each other, because usually that works out and it's okay. I do think that they look aesthetically pleasing together, and I do enjoy the way that they communicate. I've mentioned before in other videos that I give zodiacal associations, or like pairings, with each deck. This deck is a Libra, this one's a Cancer, but they are very compatible, all things considered, and very soft, which is great, honestly. They have very balanced answers. This one doesn't like to step on toes, and this one typically gives very good general readings, not so much good advice on like singular topics, but good for overall readings. And again, the two of them just like work well together. Again, not perfect. I love that there's skulls on both of those as soon as I do that. And he's holding a skull. That's pretty crazy, actually. 3 skulls. But it's not perfect, but it's not horrible. And so I do like using them together. The one conflict, I think, with this is that there is a bit of a size difference, so that can make it a little tricky to do readings. So the size difference in the cards is quite dramatic, and I do think that that can sometimes look funny on the table depending on how I lay the cards. Here I just did the 4 at the top and the 3 at the bottom. And again, you know, use what you know. That's funny, that's what, 14 and 15? Nice. I'm getting distracted by my own stuff. But yeah, sometimes the size difference can look funny, especially if I only have 1 or 2 of these. Generally, I would do more, and I might even pull more of these than I do these. It kind of depends on how I feel. But again, generally these work very well together, and I do use them for myself and for other people when I do look for deck pairings, though often for myself I just use one deck at a time when it comes to these 2 in particular without giving it another pairing, and that is just because, again, sometimes they can repeat each other. So another deck pairing that feels kind of unconventional is the Santa Muerte Tarot with the Ancestral Path Tarot. Now, I don't use the Ancestral Path Tarot deck as a tarot deck. I use it as an oracle, a very intuitive oracle. This oracle deck can be tricky to use because of its size, and I've complained about it before, but I'm going to try not to complain about it here. Instead, I'll just try to focus on these 2 decks and how they work together. So, Santa Muerte. Yeah, they're both kind of glossy, so if this is getting kind of shiny on the camera, I apologize. Also, my lighting kind of like disappeared, if that helps a little bit. There will be harsh shadows here. It is not even, it's like 5 o'clock and it's dark. It is what it is, I suppose. So these 2 decks, the reason I pair them together is not because of their art, it's not because they look great together, it's not because their size even makes sense together. They don't totally communicate perfectly. Like, they're not that compatible. They're compatible enough, but not like soulmates, you know? But the reason I pair them together is simply because they both love ancestral readings. That is kind of their whole shtick. So the Santa Muerte likes to focus on family specifically. It's a really good deck for familial readings, for familial drama. It's one that I use for family. And it's a really nice and uplifting deck, in all honesty. It's one that brings me a lot of joy and comfort, and I really like that. While the Ancestral Path tends to be more about friendship, ancestor work, connecting with your sense of self and where you belong within a community, so that's also just really sweet. They work really well in like similar readings to one another. So like if I'm doing a familial or friendship reading for somebody, if I'm doing ancestor work, like these two are going to come out together. And again, their messages don't always blend cohesively, which can be kind of troublesome, but I think both decks offer unique insight and encourage me to think differently about them. If, for example, I had the sun from this one and the moon from this one, those are kind of opposites, but it would encourage me to look at the situation differently and to see why these decks might be disagreeing on like the overall subject at hand. So I don't know. Look, we have the sun there. I really like seeing these guys together. Again, it's not aesthetically like on par with each other, and I can't say that this deck is my favorite because of the, I don't know, I have a weird thing about realistic people, but I do like using them together, and they're great for ancestral work, and I also put them up on my altar around the same time of the year. This one more so in October, and this one like a little bit after, during the winter months at times. I just like to try to connect spiritually that way, and it's really nice to have them out and displayed. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about them. I haven't really paired them together in a while. It's something I did, and then I just kind of like stopped doing for a short period of time. So I don't know, it's been a while, and I haven't had any clientele searching for past life or ancestral readings, so that's kind of put a pause on this pairing. So here's kind of how these might look together. Because of the size of the ancestral path, I tend to pick lots of cards for from the Santa Muerte to pair with it, just because this is the deck that'll be telling the story, and this is the one that's going to add the additional meanings. The reading wouldn't normally look like this. I just wasn't really sure how to set it up on camera. Typically, I think it would be more like probably something like that, and then I would pull the ancestral path and put it on top. And just kind of like put it in a problem area that would like, you know, help us to like decipher some sort of meaning. So for example, we have the Hanged Man, the Magician, and the Eight of Pentacles with the Two of Swords. So maybe there's some sort of like sacrifice that needs to be made in order to make your decision. Who knows? But I would lay them on top of the reading in order to just kind of enhance like the cards that they touch, I suppose, like add additional meaning, additional advice. But for the sake of the video, I thought it might be better to put it the other way, and now I did this anyway. Also, I will sometimes put them off to the side, but like then it's not visible in the current video, but that's what I would do if I was reading with them. Again, they don't always have a compatible message, but usually I can find some sort of extra additional piece of information to pass along to someone, which could help with ancestral work or past life work, whatever it is that I'm using the decks for. Okay, so that is basically my tarot buddy system, and we're going to go ahead and hop into the decks that I want to create some sort of buddy relationship with. I'll explain more once we get into it, but I wanted to make sure we know that that is the difference. So I do have decks that have designated buddies already, and then I have decks that I want to create buddies for the express purpose of finding a use for the oracle decks and tarot decks that I don't really reach for. And I do want all of my decks to feel the love, you know? I want them to be used in readings, I just don't always gravitate towards them. So that will be coming up, but before we go there, I know things have been a little crazy for me and my uploading and everything that I'm trying to do, but I have a lot of optimism for the rest of 2023, and I'm really eager to get into more content. I want to start reacting to more comments from you guys and posting them in videos like this one, so if you have any video suggestions, leave a comment down below and I'll feature you, and yeah, because I love doing that. But also, if you ever want to keep tabs on things that I'm working on, I send out a monthly newsletter basically documenting everything that I have done in the past month, so if you miss anything, that's a really great way to find me on any of my channels, because I'm like everywhere on the online landscape. Also, if you sign up to my newsletter, which there is a link down below somewhere in the description. If you sign up to my newsletter, you do get 100 free journal prompts when you do. And with that, you can use that for your journaling endeavors, but if you love tarot, that's 100 questions that you can ask your tarot decks. A lot of those questions are really, really, really good for doing shadow work or diving into self-discovery and all that good stuff, and the tarot can help you to formulate good answers to those questions, as well as to journal afterwards your thoughts about the reading. So if you guys are interested in getting 100 free journal prompts / technically they would work as tarot questions, that is down below, and you can sign up to my newsletter, and then I send out a monthly email, which basically keeps us connected, which is great. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, enough with that, and let's go ahead and get into the decks that I want to create a buddy system with. Alright, so those are my current deck pairings, or at least the ones that have like consistently remained. I have tried to pair other decks together. I've tried pairing certain oracle decks with other decks, but they haven't become buddies. My definition of buddies just means that like they work really well together and I often use them together. But some decks just don't have a buddy, or if I do use them together, it's like not a common or recurring thing. So yeah. But now I wanted to talk about potential pairings. So I have a lot of new decks, and I have some decks I just haven't really used much that I'm looking to create some sort of buddy system for, or at least I think that they will work well together. It's hard to say for sure, and I don't know what to expect, but like I said, I haven't tried it. So I'm going to lay them out for you so you can see how they look together and just kind of get a better idea. The deck of Luminaries Tarot and the Spirit Animal Oracle, and I think these guys would work well together. For one, this deck is used to working with a harsher deck. This deck can be kind of harsh with me, but this one's used to working with a harsher deck, so I think that this would work well. Plus, I think their artwork is going to look so much better together than it does this artwork with the traditional RWS. So first, this deck I have not shown on my channel yet. I might have done my unboxing here. I don't know if I put my unboxing on YouTube, but I did put my unboxing on Instagram, and I think I did on TikTok. This is an indie deck that I was waiting for a very long time, and I am so happy that I have it in my possession. But I haven't yet shown it here, I don't think. So this might be the first time that you guys are seeing this. Okay, if you want to see a video of me working with this deck, let me know in the comments, because I've been considering it. I do need to work with this deck. I need to do sort of like a tarot in practice sort of thing, because this deck and I are not totally getting along. We're butting heads a bit. So while I would love to pair it with this deck, I don't think it's ready to be paired with any deck. But for the sake of my buddy video, I'm going to show you what my intentions are, despite what this deck currently wants. So yeah, but if you want to see me working with this deck, or you want to just see more of this deck, let me know. But for the buddy video, I want to pair it with the Spirit Animal Oracle. I do think that they could work well together. It's going to be, oh yeah, there's an extra card in this. I do think that they could work well together, but it's going to be a process to get there. So I don't know. I think their art could blend well, for one, because this has, I mean, like, the color palette is very like purple and blue and orange, and I think that it's very vibrant, and this color palette is very purple, blue, and green, somewhat orange, mostly blue and purple it seems. So I think that it would just look nice. I think it would look really nice, and I do think they would get along. And because this deck is kind of harsh, I think that the Spirit Animal Oracle would add something like nice and pleasant to the reading. Like, look, we have the Two of Swords, okay, like trapped in indecision. And then we have this which says like let it shine, and this one which says take a leap of faith. Like, those are very positive sentiments for a challenging card. And so that's partially why I want to put them together, because I think that this will make the messages from this one a bit more palatable, or just a bit more uplifting. And I just think they would look nice together, to be honest. Like, we have here the Nine of Swords, and then the Parrot, which says watch your words, the Armadillo, which is set healthy boundaries. Like, I feel like that works really well with the Nine of Swords. I don't know. I want to see these guys, gosh, I'm like making a mess. I want to see these guys work together. I love we have strength and then a mouse. That's hilarious. But yeah, I do think they could look nice together, and I'm interested to see how they look on the table, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so I know this is kind of a mess, but I think these look really nice together, in all honesty, despite my messy setup. But I'm loving the purple together. Like look at this, and the reds, and I think the colors will look nice together. I think the meanings will work well together, and I'm interested. I'm really interested. And again, this is more of a collage-y deck, while this is more digital art, and I'm not usually a fan of modern digital art decks. Well, digital art I'm okay with, but like, I guess modern decks I'm not usually interested in, but this deck, I fell in love with it. I feel like, yeah, it's strange to put the two styles together, but also the color palette feels, I don't know, really nice. I want to do this, but I need to work on my relationship with this deck first before that happens. So yeah, again, if you want to, I don't know, if you want me to do another like week-long vlog sort of thing where I just show off, like where I just share with you guys my progress with this deck, let me know. Again, it's going to have to happen one way or another, because this deck and I, this honestly showcases our relationship at the moment. So yeah, we need to build that, I think, before a buddy can be made. So another buddy pairing that I want to attempt is the Ethereal Visions Tarot with the Jane Austen Tarot. The artwork, I think, will look beautiful together. It'll make sense. They're both pastel, and it'll fit. But I have had trouble working with the Jane Austen Tarot. In my Oracle deck video, I mentioned how I don't use this deck very much, and to be honest, I just haven't really used it since I got it. It's pretty, it feels nice, but there's something about it. I don't know. I'm not drawn to it. I don't use it. It just kind of gathers dust on my shelf, which, to be fair, a lot of my Oracle decks are like that, unfortunately. I'm not totally a fan of the pippish style to these cards. Again, the colors, I know, well, they look nice together. Like, both these decks make sense with their color palette. But I'm not a fan of the pippish style, and I'm not a fan of some of these relationships. The Six of Hearts or Six of Cups with the Lovers, that's okay. I probably would have chosen the Two of Cups with the Lovers, but sure, Six of Hearts it is. Like, I guess I'm just not on board with some of the depictions and meanings of these. So it makes it very hard to use them, because I do not have the same association. Like, Seven of Spades, spades represent swords. It's like the Seven of Swords, and I just don't see the Seven of Swords as the Chariot. Like, it's not, I love the Chariot card, and like the Chariot and the Hermit are like my cards, and I just don't see the Chariot as a Seven of Swords moment. The Chariot to me would be more like, if I had to pick a minor, I guess maybe the Eight of Wands. I don't know, because the Chariot, you know, it's fast movement, and so is the Eight of Wands. I would need time to like think about it, but like if I were associating majors with minors, but I'm not on board with the ones depicted in the deck. King of Swords as the Emperor is okay. That makes sense. But that's partially why I don't use the Jane Austen Tarot. And it's beautiful, and it looks lovely, and look how beautiful it looks with this deck. Like, they could work really well together, I think. It's just kind of hard for me to ignore the like Queen of Wands for the Empress, I would have chosen Queen of Cups. I would have chosen Queen of Cups. So I don't know. It makes it difficult for me to use the Jane Austen because I just don't agree with it. I think too much about it. Again, it could be fun just to like use it as an oracle accompanying this one, but I'm always going to look at it and be like, yeah, that's Queen of Swords and that's the Two of Pentacles, you know, like I'm always going to think that. And at times it just doesn't fit. Like this, the artwork fits fine with that. That's great. The artwork isn't too much of a problem. Again, it can be kind of like pippish or minimal, but it's not too bad. But anyway, I do want to use it. I don't want to just leave the Jane Austen tarot deck on my shelf, and I want it to be loved. I want it to, you know, see some readings, and I'm just waiting to see what readings it could be a part of. I don't know how it will read with this deck, but I think it could be fun to try. On the table, they look nice. They're both pastel. They have that same cream border going on. They have a lot of flowers going on in their borders, and they feel very luxurious, and so I do think they could work really, really well together. I just have a hard time using the Jane Austen tarot as it is. So this is a buddy pairing that I would love to consider. I would love to try. I'm just not so sure I'm going to love it or keep it because I'm just not a big fan of the Jane Austen tarot. So this next buddy pairing is interesting. I don't even know if I'm going to attempt it. I just thought it could be fun. As I was making this video and I was writing down all of my tarot decks and their buddies, I was like, you know, this would be fun to attempt, but I don't know if I'm going to like it or keep it, but it could be interesting. So right here is the gold foil tarot. This was gifted to me during the holiday season. My birthday falls during the holiday season, so that's when it was gifted to me. This deck I absolutely love, and I have not shown it on this channel yet, so here is another first look. I have no idea how it's going to show up on screen, so if you can't really see what's happening, I apologize. The cards are all gold foil. They're very shiny. They look stunning in person. Absolutely stunning. But on camera I have no idea how that's going to look, so hopefully that's okay. I had no idea how I would feel about this deck, and I love it. So if you want to hear more about this deck, why I like it, its zodiac sign, all that good information about this deck, let me know. I might make a video about that as well, or at least I can just talk about it a bit more in another video. So yeah, let me know. But I was thinking that this buddy system might look good together. So when I pulled this deck out, I forgot that like it has a silver everywhere, and originally I had meant to put this with the Mystical Dream Tarot because it also has a silver back, and I thought, oh, it could look great together, it could work together, but it didn't. It just didn't work out. I wasn't a fan of how the two were working together, and I'm not totally a fan of this deck in particular, so it's been in its box for a very long time. So we're gonna try again. We're gonna try a different buddy pairing and see what happens. Again, here we have the gold foil tarot and the Crystal Wisdom Healing Oracle. This is not my favorite crystal deck, but I do like it. I just don't use it very much. I would prefer a different crystal deck, and I'm looking at a few. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know in the comments below because I am looking for one. But I'm wondering if these are going to look good together. For one, there's like this black background, which is kind of nice, and honestly, I might trim the borders. I'm not a fan of the gilding, so I'm not too worried about losing it. It looks pretty, but it feels awful, so I don't know. It does bring color to this, like to a reading like this, but I'm not even sure if that's needed. So I might just trim it and have it all black, and I think it might work honestly better with all of my other decks if it were a solid black than if it had these colored borders. It does make it easy to find the meanings in the guidebook, but I don't even know if I would want, I have the numbers, so I don't know if that's really necessary. And also, the main reason I don't use this deck is because I just don't know what all these stones mean. Like, what is rainbow Mayanite? I have no idea what that means. chrysocolla I see all the time, but I also don't know what that means. So I'm thinking that I would need to get a better understanding of these crystals before I can even use it, but then I never study them. I never sit down and try to study the crystals. So that's partially the reason I don't use this deck. Aside from like the weird cardstock and the shiny sides and all that stuff. So again, this is a crystal pairing that's kind of obscure, kind of strange, but I do think that it could work. Maybe especially if I trim the sides so it's more aesthetically aligned. I have no idea, honestly. I have no idea. But anyway, I thought it could be fun. So I'm laying them out here for everyone to see. I'm not totally sold on the aesthetic of this. I thought the color might be nice, like seeing the pop of color in the spread, but I don't know if I like that. I think the pop of color from the crystal itself is perfectly fine. So maybe trimming that would help, but I also get really like worried about trimming decks. So that's a whole other issue. But maybe if I did, the black would look better with this. You know, I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe this is a pairing that just won't come to be. Not knowing the deck itself and not knowing the crystals and their meanings is definitely a big roadblock to using it. So even if I trimmed it, my question for myself should be, will I still use it? So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see and hope for the best. That concludes our little deck pairings. I'll give some final thoughts at the end, and of course if you guys want to see more about this deck, which the gold foil tarot, let me know, because I really do love it a lot more than I thought I would, so that's pretty cool. Alright, and that is my buddy system that I have going for my tarot decks. As you saw, there are some decks who already have designated buddies, and there are decks that I want to work with and create some sort of relationship with. Because of the way my Oracle decks work, I don't really use some of them, and I'm kind of thinking about, I don't know, getting more Oracle decks that I think I'll be more interested in using or more likely to use, and then putting these other ones away for now. I'm not really interested in getting rid of any of my decks yet, but it is something that's crossed my mind because there are just decks that I don't touch. I never touch my crystal deck, and I hardly ever use the Jane Austen tarot deck as an Oracle or as a tarot either. I don't really touch it. So I'm hoping that by creating buddies for these decks, I'll be more likely to use them, but of course there's no guarantee because I just don't feel the need to pull them out. But I hope this gave you an idea of how I do it. The main reason that I have a buddy system in the first place is so I can give readings to others and as well as myself and find multiple different perspectives and use different decks to enhance the meaning that would be in the reading. And of course I like the way it looks on the table, so that's why I like to mix and match. Obviously I have my rules, and I do struggle with having 2 tarot decks if I'm doing 2 in a reading, and so tarot and oracle seems to work better, but again with my limited number of oracle decks it does make this a bit tricky. But anyway, that is kind of my process for it all. Those are my thoughts about it. I have a few decks that I want to show on camera, so if you guys are interested in those, please let me know. I got quite a few decks over the holiday season, and I'm still keeping my eye on a few that I'm interested in, so I'd love to share that on the channel if you guys are interested. And of course, moving forward, I also want to dive into some other spiritual topics. I'm working on that tarot deep dive, but it's kind of taking a while to do, so we'll see how that goes. But all things considered, I'm feeling pretty good about the outlook for 2023. I feel like I have more momentum, and I'm hoping that I can carry this, or at least ride the wave of momentum for a while so I can keep giving content out to you guys. If you ever miss out on videos or you want to keep up on things that I'm doing, be sure to sign up to my newsletter down below. You do get 100 free journal prompts in doing so that's awesome if you are interested in journaling. It also helps if you want to use those questions for tarot readings, because I've found that journal questions and tarot questions are very similar. So if you're interested in 100 free questions to ask your deck or even 100 free journal prompts, that is down in my newsletter. You can sign up and then you can keep tabs on everything that I do. I send out an email once a month, so yeah, join me over there. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video, and until next time, I'll catch you later.